The biggest thing that scares me is just, like even with the upcoming draft class, like Trevor Lawrence cards, are already going pretty high, but it's another case like Joe Burrow where, you might invest a lot of money into a card and then that player gets injured and then you're kind of just stuck holding and hoping that the next season that they come back, just as strong or stronger or whatever the case may be.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
And on this week's episode, we're going to be talking to you about football. Is it a safe move to invest in? Who should you invest in as far as positions go and legacy players? Is this a safe investment? What makes it an unsafe investment? And kind of how you should uh, maybe do more research into football before picking it up. But before we get into that, if you could please be sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, rate, review. This really does help us out a lot, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast or night, and keep continuing to support it. We really appreciate all of the people out there that are listening. We see you. We see the numbers rising each week, and we're happy to continue to keep producing and getting this out every week. So without further ado, let's get into the episode, man.
Okay, so football, is it a safe investment? For me personally, it has always been a safe investment because I enjoy football, watching football. I enjoyed opening packs of football from the 90s to somewhat modern, I suppose. And I'll still, if I can, find some recent football, like in retail, I guess I'll definitely rip it. But for me, I feel like the biggest thing that it comes down to is I have never fully invested into a football player just because I thought he was going to pan out. For me, it's been more of like I'm going to open this product because I like the product and there are some potential good rookies in it. Of course, we've talked about rookie cards being our favorite thing for a long time. So just like with football, that's always the hottest thing to pick up is the current rookies or whatever you're ripping. You're hoping to pull some of the best rookies. Getting into, is it a safe investment? If you're new to collecting cards and you like football, the biggest thing that we want to discuss is not forking out a ton of money on somebody, especially when it comes to the rookies, because a lot of the rookies now are their really high premium prices for cards. And, there's some examples to be made of guys just not panning out, or they debut, they have one great game, the following game, they have a season ending injury, and you always hope that they're going to come back. But if that kind of thing happens and you spent $500 to $1,000, even say a couple $100 on a player, it's just going to decrease that value altogether. And we've all made those mistakes. I feel like you as a collector picking up football cards, it was more for nostalgic purposes. You were picking up players that you remember growing up watching, and you're not in it for any crazy amount or anything. I know you've also picked up some more modern players in hopes of, when season comes around and Lamar Jackson is one of them that I know we've picked up. How comfortable are you picking up cards when it comes to football in general? Even not being a huge football collector, what are your most safe purchases that you feel when it comes to picking up football cards?
It really depends, honestly. Like you said, I'm not a huge football collector. That's probably the sport that holds the least amount of space in my PC. I'm not the biggest football fan. I've never really have been. I was when I was a kid. I grew up a Packers fan, weirdly, even though I have absolutely no connections to Wisconsin. I was just
Brett
a
Favre?
huge Brett Favre fan.
Yeah.
Dorsey Levens, like those were the days, man.
Name
Um,
drops.
right. But when it comes to picking up football, um, I'm a little bit hesitant. I do a lot more research into something that I don't know a lot about. When it comes to soccer, I'm very knowledgeable about it. I'm very knowledgeable about players, about prospects. I'm really good at that. It's probably the most knowledgeable I am about sport in general, not just within the hobby. So I have my ear to the streets when it comes to that. But when it comes to football and sometimes baseball. It's just I if I'm gonna be investing in somebody that I don't know of, because obviously you've got the Pat Mahomes, you got the Tom Brady's of the world, Russell Wilson. Shout out to Russell Wilson. He's a great guy.
Shh,
Um,
always the nicest guy.
Lamar Jackson, like, even Lamar Jackson, like I, these are just kind of you have the big names that are they're gonna fetch a premium. And I'm not even just talking rookie cards. I'm talking second year, third year cards that are still selling for way more than, let's say, a PSA 10 Lamar Jackson rookie card or a Baker Mayfield. If I am looking into investing into football, I'm gonna make sure that I know that the odds are in my favor as best as they can be. Again, football is, like you said, is just a very unpredictable sport. Somebody could have a great game or maybe a great few games, and then they could either have, a terrible rest of the season and get replaced. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
People just kind of lose their confidence, or maybe they get that first professional sack and just it kind of changes their mentality. Like, no, they're not playing in college anymore, because the college game is just very different from the pros, and they can just kind of have a tough time shaking that off for the rest of the season. So realistically, if I'm picking up somebody new that I've never heard of, I'm going to be doing a lot of research into them. And if it's somebody that I've never heard of, and they're not, one of these marquee players or rookies, I'm not going to be spending a whole lot of money. Like, I'm just not. Like, I'll limit myself to usually graded cards. But if I feel like somebody that I believe in, like maybe like a Chase Claypool, who had a really good rookie season, and he's a wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's just somebody that I like. I like his energy. I like his style of play.
That's an example. That's what I'm trying to figure out too. Like in football, like if especially for modern, I'm just trying to figure out, is there anybody that you're comfortable picking up at all? I mean, even we're not talking like high dollar, but let's go from even $5 to $10 a card, let alone 30 to 60. Like Chase Claypool is just that guy for you right now.
Yeah, I would say so. Somebody that's not a marquee player. He's a young kid. Again, like I said, I like his style of play. He had a really good hot streak there, in his rookie season that I after watching was like, okay, like I think this kid could really be the real deal. Those are just safer, less expensive plays that I'm okay with picking up without a
Yeah.
ton of knowledge.
And we've talked about, before in a previous episode how, quarterbacks are kind of that go-to when it comes to football. And realistically, I feel like we are going to see an increase, in love and respect in the hobby as far as other position players go offensively and defensively. But for me, it's like wide receiver, that's one of my favorite positions, and those cards never fetched like a super high premium as compared to, a lot of the quarterbacks of certain draft classes. So I feel like we may see a change of that this upcoming season, but and that's one of the pluses as far as like, is it cool to gamble on football, if you're new to it. I would shoot for not thinking just about quarterbacks and like the biggest players of every draft class. I mean, go back to like, is there a position that you liked, or whatever the case may be. But that's a good example, man, is because like DK is definitely somebody that I enjoy picking up. Some of his stuff is pricey depending on what you're going for, and the same thing with Chase Claypool. But that's another good example as far as picking up modern football, because the season is about to approach, and it's exciting, and it's going to be cool seeing some of these players. It'll be interesting to see how DK and Claypool come out this season. So I don't know. We'll find out.
Right. And that's just kind of the interesting play, because we had talked about before, even before I was getting into started picking up football cards. Um, One of the main things that we spoke about was, okay, you have your quarterbacks, but do we see a future in maybe running backs or wide receivers? Do we see a future in that? Fantasy football is huge, and fantasy football isn't just quarterbacks. It's rushing yards, it's
Yeah,
receiving
it's
yards,
it's
it's yards after
everything.
catch. Like, it's not just quarterback play. Like if the quarterback has a terrible game, you could still have, a ton of rushing yards from your running back and score a lot of points. So it's yes, quarterbacks are going to be the king when it comes to football pickups or the hobby in general, but I just think that when we talked about it, we were kind of thinking, is there a play for wide receivers and running backs, especially just kind of capitalizing on that fantasy football mentality. And I think
Well,
that it's a safe move too, because you're not, again, if you have the money to drop, you know, thousands of dollars on a PSA 10 Pat Mahomes silver prism or a numbered prism, like, yeah, by all means do that because that kid is definitely the future of the NFL. He definitely is. He already has a ring, and he's proven that so far, which is the degree of difficulty to getting a Super Bowl ring is insane. And for him to already have that one ring under his belt and a second Super Bowl appearance, it's just insane at his age. So just if you have the money to do that, by all means, if you believe in it, just try to find the best dip in the off season before it gets too late.
yeah, and our motto has been for a while like goats only. So if you are able to invest and pick up, some Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, a lot of the great quarterbacks, then that's definitely a move because that stuff is going to appreciate in value. But getting into other, I mean, everything has gained its value. Certain wide receivers, Randy Moss, look at him, his market, has gone up for certain types of rookie cards like SB Authentic and stuff like that. A lot of the key rookie cards have definitely gone up in value in high grade. But one of the biggest risks in football has always been the running back market because running backs have gotten to some high prices depending on what rookie year you're looking at. There's been a lot of hype built around that, but just the consistency hasn't always been there. Unless you're Frank Gore, who's been playing since 1919, then that's a whole other story. But at the same time, there's a lot of other notable guys. Like for me, like Marshall Falk, I'll still pick up Marshall Falk rookie cards. I have a bunch of them from back in the day, and they're still fairly cheap, especially for his 94 SP rookie card, which is a really nice card. There's also a die cut version of that, but that's just something that I would still pick up if I came across it, especially in person because of the nostalgic purpose. So for me, it's another way of investing into football, especially in a position that is super injury prone. There's still deals to be had that way.
When it comes to investing in the hobby, it doesn't really matter the sport, really. The one thing that you can always just kind of gauge, maybe even the pulse of the market, is go to eBay and type in PSA 10 and select your category as football, and then go to ended recently and change the search to highest first. And you'll see obviously a ton of Tom Brady rookie cards or Tom Brady ultra rare cards. You're going to see a lot of Patrick Mahomes, but in that mix is Jerry Rice, Joe Montana. Yeah, that's three quarterbacks and one GOAT wide receiver, but there's a wide receiver that's getting a lot of respect in the hobby, who's
Yeah,
probably
that's
the best player to ever do it as
yeah,
far as the position goes, and one of the
yeah.
best football players overall. So if a wide receiver, if a GOAT wide receiver is getting, you know, $20,000, $40,000 worth in the hobby, that trickle down effect is real, and you can just kind of gauge it that way.
Yeah, that's a good example. And we've talked about like those particular rookie cards, on the true rookie topic because this is also bringing up guys that only have one rookie card, and not like a numerous amount like the products today where you have 20 different rookie cards. Like this is just, you want a Jerry Rice rookie card, you're going for that card or a Joe Montana or whatever it may be, and then you start trying to get better graded condition copies of these cards. But yeah, that's definitely a good example, man. There's going to be a lot of high prices for anything right now, really, still, especially the rarity if you have some really low numbered parallels or silver and high grade stuff. But the biggest thing that scares me is just, like even with the upcoming draft class, like Trevor Lawrence cards, are already going pretty high, but it's another case like Joe Burrow where you might invest a lot of money into a card and then that player gets injured and then you're kind of just stuck holding and hoping that the next season that they come back just as strong or stronger or whatever the case may be.
And that's another thing with the NFL. In your history of collecting cards or even just following football in the hobby, this is a question I have for you that I think is probably important and people should probably want to hear. In your experience, even just modern experience, but in your experience, how many times have you seen a quarterback have a crazy rookie year, right? Like an insane rookie year, and they didn't get injured, and they had high passing yards, they had high completion rates, low turnovers, low, interceptions. How many times have you seen like a really, really great standout quarterback their rookie year, and those prices never come down?
I'm gonna give a couple of examples. We'll take it back, not like too old, even though I am old. Like look at Tom Brady for example. His rookie card is from 2000. He does have several different rookies, but if you would have been like placing your bets on Tom Brady
Which
when
nobody
that
was.
those
Let's be
cards,
honest, nobody was.
nobody was. You know, there might have been actually a few people like because there's some pretty diehard Patriots fans, but I mean those types of people that were literally picking up all these cards. I mean, you can't imagine how cheap they were. You know, and then we transform into 1999 where you have Dante Culpepper. I always bring up Dante Culpepper because I used to be a big Vikings fan and used to like him and Randy Moss, blah blah blah. But his cards were relatively high, especially like I remember his SPX card and like, you know, his contenders and stuff like that. Like his cards were really high and he was a great quarterback for a while, but just never made it past, you know, to let alone build up those stats to have a long career like that. Um, that's kind of like one jump from another, you know, like being able to invest in somebody when nobody else has faith in them, as opposed to like picking up on the player. Granted, I did like the Vikings and I did like Dante Culpepper, you know, so to me, I was happy picking up these cards, and I still have Dante Culpepper cards, and I'll keep them because one, if I ever sell them, I'm not going to get much for them. So, you know, there's really no point, but that's just kind of like the football collective side for me. Um, but moving on to like the newer players, it's really hard to say, dude. Like, have you seen a quarterback come out and just continue from rookie year to progress as time goes on? Uh, and again, we talked about Russell Wilson, but he is kind of like one of those guys, if you think about it, you know, that was playing around his rookie year and has continued to do well, like up to this day. So that is an example, but it's hard to say as far as consistency goes,
I'm
especially
talking
because
I'm talking most. I know performance is a different thing, but I'm talking about prices in the hobby, like specifically. Like, should people be investing heavy into, let's say, a Joe Burrow, a Justin Herbert, a Tua, even a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield? Like, should people be investing super heavy their rookie year when prices are crazy because there's so much hype built around them, and maybe they do have, like I said, a great rookie year, or should they just wait it out, let the season come to a complete end, make sure that they don't get injured, and pick up, once the heat has died down a little bit. Like, has there ever
dude,
been a situation that you've seen where, let's say, a player's prices are like, say, a PSA 10 base card's going for $1,000, right? His rookie season, and then maybe he still has a great year, and then the off season comes and the prices dip. Like, has there ever been a time that you can remember where prices just continue to stay at that $1,000 mark and even continue to go up after their rookie year?
yeah, I'm not gonna invest $1,000 into a base card. I mean, straight up. Like the way that I look at it, and we've talked about this before, is if I have $1,000 to spend on a card, I'm picking up like a true rookie of like an actual OG or, you know, something like that. So no, I can't say that like it's ever been worth it. But then again, like over the last, you know, year and a half, whatever, it's been that way. The market has changed drastically. You know, I look at it that back in the day, like, yeah, prices have been high to an extent, but we're not talking $1,000 for a base card. You know, a couple $100 maybe, let's say, even say 150 to $350. I mean, to me, that was the normal of like the big players. So again, it's like thinking of it that way. Like I can't remember recalling ever taking a gamble of like paying a premium like that for a card. I was always just hoping to pull that player in a product because wax boxes didn't used to be that expensive. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like you have a hobby box that's $150 and there's a possibility of pulling a $250 card out of it. You know what I mean? That's the chase. That's the normal chase in the hobby. It's not like, you know, how it is now that you can potentially pull that $1,000 to $20,000, you know, card. Like that's different, and I've kind of grown with that, but it really just comes down to, like, I will say that it's okay to invest in any position player or whoever it may be if you can get it at the right price. I wouldn't say take $1,000 gamble unless you're just balling like that. Then that's, it is what it is. I'm not, and if I was, I would just be investing into probably more vintage, higher graded copies of things. But yeah, I can't necessarily say I wouldn't recommend doing that, dude. It
Right,
just
that's what I'm
depends on the
saying.
person's the
That's the
person's budget.
that's the point I'm kind of trying to make. Like, is it safe to say that picking up a player's rookie card at their uh, in their rookie year graded, at that high premium, like it's probably safe to say that you don't have to you should probably just wait until their second year at least,
You
right?
gotta
At
really
minimum.
believe, dude. You gotta really believe in that player to make that kind of a move. I mean, if you're just like, some people just have that intuition about certain players or that a team's gonna do really well. I've figured out more of that as far as baseball goes, because I feel like if I just have a good feeling about a team that's building up, like, I'm gonna start trying to pick up rookies of those guys if I don't have them already. But football's a little bit more, unpredictable, because we talk about the injuries and stuff. That's why, like, with modern quarterbacks, it's okay to invest into them, but just don't spend an arm and a leg,
Right.
because they may get hurt, and not pan out. And we've talked about before, like, the same year, for Peyton Manning and, Randy Moss's rookie year, you have Ryan Leaf, who was like that was the dude you wanted to pull, out of that class, and nothing happened to that. And now you have players like, Peyton Manning, Randy Moss, and Charles Woodson. And there's also another, a lot of other sneaky players from that draft class that aren't quarterbacks, that are reputable players, in my opinion. But if you can get in on stuff at a decent price, then it's okay. But if you have the money to spend, or you're contemplating spending like a lot of money, even a couple $100s on certain cards, you may just want to reevaluate the whole football, aspect in general, as far as the hobby goes. Because then you can maybe just invest in other players, like we talked about, like GOATs only, like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Like, Aaron Rodgers is a great one to pick up rookie cards of. Um, it's still an affordable price for certain things. But yeah, you either gotta really have faith in who you're picking up, or try to get things at a decent price, because the football market is very unpredictable, because football itself is so unpredictable.
And very injury prone too. So
Yes.
so if somebody was like me, over this past year, if somebody was like me that wasn't super knowledgeable about football, saw it as saw it as an investment that they're willing to make, when who are you telling them to pick up right now? Like, you don't have to be specific. I'm just saying, like, is it like maybe like a Patrick Mahomes that's been in the league for a few years? Like, when's the point that you feel that it's safe to pick up a quarterback? Is it, their third year in the league, their fourth year in the league? You know, since we kind of established that it's okay to not, give into the hype their rookie year and spend a ton of money their first year and then end up holding the bag long term if those prices drop. The reason made that specific point and asked that specific question is, we talked about on a previous podcast, those Joe Burrow PSA 10 base cards were going for about $900 to $1,000 during the season, and then in the off season after he was hurt, they're going for about half of that, for like even more than half, less than half, so like 450. Those exact same cards, like months later. If somebody's just not in tune with football and how it works and how the hobby works, when would you say is a safe moment to pick up a quarterback?
Well, Joe Burrow, for example, we've talked about before, is those cards should have never been that high to begin with. So that, for sure, that's a lot of money to spend, especially on a base card. If we're talking about that particular player, or anyone else, any other quarterback or from that particular draft class, which there's some guys, like, there's going to be some guys from that draft class that really do work, and they're going to be, names that stick around for years to come. But the biggest thing as far as getting that kind of card, like you talked about a Joe Burrow, like, I would rather take a chance on finding it raw. If you can, go to card shows. Try to go to card shows, even card shops that have these cards, and be able to see them. That way, you're getting it for a fraction of that price, and you'll be able to see the condition in person, and that'll make you feel better about the purchase. Because I would rather spend. I don't know how much I would spend on modern stuff, dude, to be honest. But if we're talking about Burrow, in particular, like I would hope to be able to find a raw card for, let's even say 25 to $50. That might be an offensive price drop for that because maybe raw go for more than that. But like that would be for me a comfortable price range that I would shoot for. Even if I didn't get it graded, because I'm picking up one of the better rookie cards, the more sought after rookie cards, even though there's an abundance of them. But you're buying it and you're just holding it for a while, because then you don't have any quick intent of selling it, especially if you're going to go through the grading process and you're going to have to wait forever anyway.
So you're thinking if you are making investments in a very young player or an unproven rookie card, you're going to want to try your best to get a decent raw copy in person or a few raw copies of that card. And I think that that's a good example to make. Like, you're going to have to wait regardless. You're going to have to wait to see if this player pans out. So why not pay a fraction of what maybe a graded example goes for, hold it, and if you see like, okay, this player's actually doing really good, like you don't have to rush. You don't have to rush it with football because it is such an unpredictable sport and it is such a dangerous and injury prone sport that it's like if you're planning on investing in a quarterback specifically, maybe try to get it few raw copies or a few serial numbered copies of their rookie card. Hold them long term. Wait to get them graded or not. It's up to you. Depending on the price, like maybe if you just still bulk submit them and just hold on to them, try to get in as cheap as you can with as little risk as you can because at the end of the day, goats aren't made with the exception of Patrick Mahomes, which I wouldn't even call him a goat yet, but he does have a ring and a Super Bowl appearance, which is insane. Um, Even with like somebody like Patrick Mahomes, you had to wait, a little bit, but not everybody's Patrick Mahomes. You might have to wait for a Tua. You might have to wait for a Justin Herbert or a Kyler Murray or people that are big in those names or, a Josh Allen. Like, it's okay to miss the boat of the early hype because if you do believe in this player and you believe that it's a smart investment long term, those prices are going to go up long term. They should, if they really are as big as they are, if they are the next Tom Brady, if they are the next Joe Montana or Jerry Rice, if these players you think that they have the potential, then put your money where your mouth is and hold on to them long term. And it's okay to miss that first hype, beast moment where you have a serial numbered, Joe Burrow or a Tua or a Justin Herbert, and you send that off super express for 400, $500 to get graded, and then you come back and the card's only worth 450. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to just wait and just hold on to it because if you do believe in that player and that player is good and they pan out, then their cards should appreciate over time. And so you can miss that first hype moment for that long term 4 or 5 years from now where they're in the playoffs, like Josh Allen is, like Lamar Jackson is, where 4 or 5 years from now, and they actually have a good team or something, and like you can send it off then, or you can already have it graded and just hold it long term. You know.
Mahomes may be like that Tom Brady type of vibe where like again like Tom Brady when his cards came out nobody was trying to pick them up, and it's the same thing with Mahomes, dude. Like in 2017 nobody was really chasing Patrick Mahomes. Like I was picking up CJ Beathard, like, and I don't know if that dude is even in the league anymore, so it's kind of just like always pick up all the rookies in the draft class is what I always go for. Pick up all the guys, whether they're quarterbacks or whatever it may be, any sport really. I mean, try to have at least one of every rookie from a draft class, if you can pick them up, because you can pick up lots of cards or, biggest thing is back in the day, dude, if we're talking about acquiring football, let alone anything, would have been buy some retail, buy some hobby, and it's just not that easy anymore. So you either jump from picking up these cards when people get them graded and they're in high grade, or picking them up immediately when they come out. That's not always the best move, because when a product first drops, like Prism, if we're talking about football, where you have Herbert and Burrow and Tua, like as soon as that product drops, those prices are going to be really high, even raw. It doesn't matter. You let it
Right.
cool off for like a month, give it like a month, have some patience, and you'll be able to acquire, these base cards at least for a fraction of that price. As far as football goes, I feel like there is some long term importance to discuss, like we have, but it's just like don't go crazy with spending money, because, again, we talk about the injury prone aspect of it, and that could be any position, which we feel like more positions are going to see more love this upcoming season. But, just getting cards at a good price. And the biggest thing is, of course, collect the teams that you like, collect the players that you like. And if you can open these products, then hopefully you pull some decent rookies. And if you do, just, tuck them away until you figure out what to do with them. I feel like the most exciting thing to me is if you're able to get these rookie phenoms, whether they're raw or you're pulling them yourself, the exciting thing is have the patience, because if you hold these cards and you're not into them for a lot of money, as the years go by, you may enjoy watching these players continue to produce. And then you never know whether you decide to sell those cards for a profit, or they turn out just to be cards that you hold in your PC because you found out that you like a quarterback for the Panthers. Like, you never know. That's kind of the cool thing about the hobby.
And that's not to say that there's not ways to day trade and to make money during the season in flips if a player has a really good game or they have a few touchdown passes or catches or runs. That's not to say that there's not opportunities to do that short term flip uh, game. Like that's all part of the investing aspect too. But I like to think more long term because if I just don't really have the time to follow everything. Like it's hard enough keeping up with one sport. And if you're and again, I'm not the biggest football fan. I'm just not, like, straight up. I know what I know because of the hobby and,
Yeah.
because of just, popular culture, but I just don't really have the time to follow it like I would a soccer, like I would a sport that I'm really excited about.
And
So,
that's exactly it, dude. That's exactly it at the end of the day, because this is a football topic, and you're not opposed to picking up football cards, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be spending your hard-earned money, you're going to be going for soccer, you're going to be going for other things, and that's normal. But I do see you from time to time going in on some football pickups. Again, Lamar Jackson is definitely one of them. I know you got a few of his rookies that you're holding. I know your intent is flipping this upcoming season, because Lamar Jackson is going to produce provided he stays healthy, and we're rooting for him that way, even though we're not Ravens fans. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's still something exciting for you as far as being able to stay into football. It gives you a purpose to be into football.
right, right. And I like the kid. I really do like Lamar Jackson. He's not the typical cookie cutter quarterback. He does things his own way. Some people don't like that about him. I personally wish he wouldn't run as much, but if you don't have options or weapons to throw to, I mean, you're kind of limited to that. But the reason why I invested in the hobby with Lamar Jackson, and actually the method that I would recommend if you are interested in getting into any sport really. But what I did specifically with Lamar Jackson was I kind of researched, I looked at the NFL schedule. I checked when the first game of last year's season was, and I did a little bit of research and I just searched on PWCC Marketplace, which is a website that has historical data. PWCC doesn't always have the most accurate information because I think whenever there's auctions that end, they list the cards as sold at that price when, or not auctions, best offer accepted. When those are come up in the feed, those are usually just whatever the original asking price was. They don't post what they actually sold for, so that could be a little tricky. So what I would suggest people to do is look at the schedule when it started, when it ended. Look at their stats and see when they had their best games of the season, and look at the historical data. So go back to their previous season. Granted, they didn't get injured in the off season or they didn't get injured during the season. So there's really not much that has changed for Lamar Jackson since that last season. last season's performance, and just kind of see what those prices were doing around those times, and find when the prices were the hottest as far as the highest pricing, and kind of just gauge like, okay, for example, a few of those cards were going for like 600 to 800 bucks throughout that time period, and you can pick them up for probably like 150 right now. I don't know if they've gone
Probably
up more.
No, probably more than that before because, and that's another good example of why we're picking up Lamar Jackson because his prices were really high and we really enjoyed watching him. I mean, he's just a freaking, I mean, he's athletic, man. He's super athletic. He's a great quarterback. He's almost like a running back. I mean, he seems like he could play like multiple positions. But the biggest reason is we're picking him up because his prices are so low right now. And that's probably about to change. But at the same time, like when you look at his Prism rookies who PSA 10s were well over $1,000, and now PSA 10s I think are probably at least worth around 800.
Oh, sorry.
But we
I meant to add that I picked up PSA 9s at that
yeah
price.
no, and PSA 9s are a fraction of that price, dude. So for us it's a no-brainer that we jump in on that because it's still relatively affordable, and it's of a player that even PSA 9s before when his prices were so high were a lot, fetching, I don't know, at least $300 to $400
No,
somewhere around there.
that's the example that I was saying. The historical data that I looked up was for a PSA 9 base card, and they were going for around $600 to $800 towards the
Okay,
beginning of the season.
and that
And
makes sense.
yeah, that's sorry, I forgot to mention that point.
And tens were probably, I don't know, 12 to 1500.
Right,
And
easily.
when you think about how hard, like, certain sets are just like, that they're going to have flaws, and that's a very condition sensitive set, especially for Lamar Jackson's rookie card for some reason, and probably any of them, but just not just centering or other corner issues or whatever it may be. It's like the surfaces on those cards are really tough,
Yeah, lots of
especially
factory
if you come
defects.
across silvers. I mean, silvers are, you will rarely, I mean, look up right now like what is to offer as far as Lamar Jackson silver rookies, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen. I mean, you just won't see them. And is that because a lot of them are not grade worthy, they haven't been pulled yet, or people are just holding those cards because the
Look at the
pop
pop
report is
report.
probably extremely low?
Right.
Yeah.
PSAcard.com/pop. It's your best friend. So let's get into our pickups and flips of the week. So my pickup of the week this week, speaking of historical data, I picked up a 2017. This is not rookie year; it's second year, but a 2017 Topps Chrome Champions League Christian Pulisic, PSA 9. This is card number 10. This is the regular card. This isn't the sample promo. I picked that up for 40 bucks, and that's kind of a steal. I think that I got a best offer accepted. I think he had it listed at 50, I want to say, but I picked that up for 40. And just for historical information, that exact same card went for 65 in March. So um, kind of taking advantage of that dip, and it's definitely out there, and it's a very significant card because it's the first year of Top Chrome in soccer, and it's essentially his second year card, and considered one of his key cards. So that's my pickup of the week. What about you?
Yeah, and 65 even alone is a reasonable price. So to get that for a little bit cheaper, I mean, I understand why you pulled the trigger on that for sure. My pickup of the week is going to be a 2018-19 Panini Donruss Optic Holo of Timothy Weah. I picked this card up in a SGC 9. This guy plays for the U.S. men's national team. I know his prices aren't like extremely high as compared to like McKinney or a few other players, but I got this card for $40 shipped. I think he had it at around like $80 or best offer, which realistically this card should probably be around $80,
Right, agreed.
potentially more in the future,
Pop
so to
report's
get this
so
for
low.
literally half that, at $40. I mean, I definitely had to pull the trigger. I literally sent an offer for 40, and I normally don't ask half of a price of what someone's asking, but I mean, I don't know the pop report as far as SGC goes or any other grading companies for this card. I don't know if a lot of people have graded Timothy Weah, but for $40, I mean, I'll probably hold it, and if I decide to have it at a show and put it on my table, it'll probably be at 80, and if somebody wants to pay around that, then fine. And if not, I'm comfortable holding.
That's a dope pickup. Definitely a tough set to grade too. My flip of the week started in December of this past year. I picked up quite a few of these, but I picked up a 2019 Bowman Wander Franco. This is card number BP 100. This is his first Bowman rookie card. I picked up quite a few of PSA 9s and a few 10s that I still have that I'm holding. At the time in December, I picked these up for about 18 bucks a pop. And recently, he got called up to the majors, which is awesome for all of those Franco fans that have been waiting years for him to get called up, being the number one prospect. And I flipped that recently for 48 bucks. So not a bad flip at all, considering if I flip two of these, I'll probably pay for all of the cards that I picked up of his.
And not a bad price for people wanting to pick up a Franco first card, dude. I mean, realistically, 40 to 50 bucks is not a bad price. This takes time as far as making the progression of building up stats over the years and staying healthy, and being on a good team also is important, but just doing your part on the team is a big factor. So that's awesome. My flip of the week is from the 2016 Prism Euro set. We were picking up these sets, I want to say like for like 15 to 20 bucks, which is crazy. I know we
like
picked up a
25
couple of the
bucks
sets,
for a complete
and
set.
we were also picking up singles, for a really cheap price. So I ended up selling a raw copy of Robert Lewandowski. I sold this card for $30 raw. It was actually a really clean copy. I planned on grading it at some point, but there was a dude who really liked the Poland national team. He looked at the card, examined it or whatever, and I think that's exactly what I had it at. It was around 30 bucks, and expecting maybe somebody offer 20 bucks or 15 bucks, but I mean, he was comfortable after examining the card, made the purchase for 30 bucks. So it's not always about making like huge money on cards. It's realistically what we were getting these cards from the set for. It was a huge profit, but I mean, still, 30 bucks for a raw Lewandowski. That's my flip.
Which is kind of crazy because you can pick up a raw PSA 9 of the exact same card for around 25 to 30 bucks right now.
Yeah.
Graded
Well,
PSA 9.
mine was probably a PSA 10, but who knows?
But still,
That's what you
that's
always
awesome
think.
for a raw card.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so those are our pickups and flips of the week. All right, man. So how do you feel about today's episode? Did we cover enough of what we wanted to talk about, do you think, as far as football pickups go? And not so much how to invest, but why you should and what you should invest in if you are going to roll the dice.
Yeah, I think that football is good to pick up for long-term investment. I just think that it's important to understand the hesitancy behind it. Just know that it's not wise to spend a lot of money on a fresh player that might get injured and not pan out. I think it's still a good idea to pick up these players, but at the same time, try to get them at a decent price. And if you're going to spend a lot of money, always go for those more established players. That's what we always shoot for as far as GOATs only. It doesn't matter what sport it is. If you want to spend a good premium on some cards, always go for the more established players first. But it's still a good idea to pick up the modern stuff.
For sure, especially in the state of the hobby right now, where we have been seeing an overall dip in the market. It's just evident. It's just what happens. Again, I think that a lot of it has to do with it being there's only baseballs on right now, pretty much, which happens. It's happened before, in this kind of lull in sports, but there might be an overall correction, which is fine as well. We've been able to pick up some wax that we've been ripping, which is pretty exciting and fun to be able to do that again and not break the bank. But just always take advantage of those dips. Like I said in our example earlier, check out PWCC Marketplace for historical data and just see what that exact card that you're thinking about picking up, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, soccer, hockey, doesn't matter what the sport is. Look at the historical data, see where it was at, and see if you're getting a good deal. Right now, chances are you probably are with the dip in the prices, but just kind of gauge things properly. When we say do your research, this is what we mean. Look at where the highest marks were for that card, whether it's right before the season started, whether it's, after they have a good game or a nice string of a few games or they make the playoffs, you'll be able to see, an overall picture of what these cards have gone for and the potential of what they can go for. And if you know what they can go for and nothing's changed, there's been no injuries, there's been no scandals, there's been no crazy, off-season trades or deals for this player, you also just by knowing the historical data, you kind of get an idea of maybe what you could flip it for when that time comes. Whether and
Yeah.
you'll know, hopefully, if it's like right before the season starts, that okay, that's probably the best time, that's the highest it went for last season, and that's when I'm gonna flip if you are making those investments. And if you're not, if you're thinking like a year investment, not so much 5, 10, 20 years down the road. So just keep in mind, just do your research.
Yeah, and real quick, just I have to ask you though, though you haven't ripped a lot of football product, as of now, what has been your favorite football product that you've ripped?
Optic. Optic is one of my favorite sets. Panini Optic is my favorite set, probably for all sports. I mean, I'm not spending a ton of money. I'm not spending the money on National Treasures or any of those types of high dollar products. But if I'm talking like something that is within my budget, Optic for sure. I just, the design is amazing.
Is that because you pulled a pink hollow of Sean Murphy Bunting?
You pulled that hollow, dude.
Okay,
You're
for
the one
you though,
that
that
pulled
was
it.
your card.
Right?
That's gotta be a flip of the week at some point, right?
Yeah, man. But I would say Optic. What about you?
That's hard to say, dude. I don't know. I mean, I'll obviously get my hands on Prism and Optic as far as modern goes, but
That Bowman Chrome?
yeah, I mean, I go back to thinking of like when Tops and Bowman was a thing. So, um, I don't know, dude. That's a really tough one. Like I always talk about 98 with Randy Moss and Peyton Manning. That was one of my favorites to pull. I think Fleer Ultra back in the day, especially in the 90s. I think that the photography is really cool in those cards. And then there's
Right.
also those shots of pulling, either a gold medallion or a platinum medallion. And then you have some inserts and stuff. But when it comes to football, like I'm not all about 90s wax as much, but when it comes to football, I feel like anything 90s is really fun.
So we really hope that the information that we shared today is helping you, and all of the information that we've shared. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Raw Mints, and we do post a lot of our content there. And this is where you can find a lot of other things that we share to all of you to maybe help you be a better collector or refresh your current state as a collector if you are a veteran collector. So this has been another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
Thank you for listening.